Welcome back to the Changemaker podcast. I'm your host, Deke Copenhaver. Today, my guest is my new friend, Mayor Tim Kelly of Chattanooga. Tim is the 66th mayor of Chattanooga. He grew up in Chattanooga and attended undergraduate school at Columbia University. Upon returning to Chattanooga, Kelly expanded his family's automotive dealership and launched several successful ventures, including co-founding Chattanooga's professional soccer club, which I can't wait to hear about that one.
Oh, yeah.
He later earned his MBA from Emory University's Goizueta School of Business.
Close.
Kelly is what's that?
That's good. That's glad. We should just take that out of the bio. Nobody can pronounce it.
Okay. Kelly has always been active in the community, serving on boards for multiple nonprofits, and even teaching as an adjunct professor at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. Since being elected mayor in April 2021, he has made great strides in his vision to create one Chattanooga, a city where every resident has the opportunity to thrive and prosper. Ladies and gentlemen, my new friend, Mayor Tim Kelly.
Welcome to the Changemaker podcast, hosted by Deke Copenhaver. Deke is the author of The Changemaker, a Forbes publishing book that has reached #1 on Amazon on multiple occasions and in multiple categories like management skills and total quality management. During this podcast, Deke interviews exceptional change-making leaders. Deke currently operates Copenhaver Consulting, where he helps local governments and other public organizations maximize their potential. He's also a sought-after public speaker. We hope that the Changemaker has an impact on you today and that you find takeaways that make you a better leader in your life. Now, here's Deke.
Welcome, Tim.
Thank you, Deke. It's an honor to be here.
Well, and I do want to say that you were first elected in 2021, but you were just reelected this year, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, in March.
With basically rounding up a smidgen 85% of the vote.
Closer to 86, but yes. Yeah. It was a lot. I mean, they say you either run unopposed or run scared. And I did, and I had a very MAGA opponent. And, considering the political climate, I didn't, I played to the sidelines. I'm very competitive, but I was pleasantly surprised because that was a historic margin here in Chattanooga.
Well, I'll tell you, and I've shared with people that it's, in today's politics that are just so toxic, so extreme on either side of the aisle, that people will go to an alternative if they're presented with one.
Yep.
So you obviously presented an alternative to the ugliness and just toxicity of hyper-partisan politics, and the people responded.
No, I think that's exactly right. Studied Zen Buddhism a bit in college, and I love the aphorism of the sound of one hand clapping, right? And dualism, when it comes to politics, is a toxic thing because it preys on one of the worst cognitive biases that humans have, which is that, it has to be one or the other. It's why the choice clause works in sales, right? And look, when I ran the first time, I had a bunch of koozies made that we handed out and said, my party is Chattanooga. And that was it, right? Like as I told you the first time we talked, I read a book in 2016 called The New Localism that I recommend to everybody. And the thesis of it was really that, look, cities are the greatest human invention. The Athens, Greece of Aristotle was a city about the size of Chattanooga and Augusta. And, and cities are where all the GDP is produced. They're engines of human innovation. So, maybe we have the whole political pantheon turned upside down. The federal level obviously has a function. The state level certainly has a function, but cities where the action is. And I think we need to think about our cities and the communities within our cities as really the primary building blocks of our society. I mean, as I say all the time, like Jesus was the first localist. I mean, what do you think he meant by love thy neighbor?
Yeah, I totally agree. I did a TED Talk a number of years ago called Cities Where All Things Connect, and saying that we should view cities as organisms. Right. And so if one part of the organism is not healthy, it impacts the health of the rest of the organism. But we did a lot of community revitalization when I was in office. And I'm like, okay, that drives down crime in those areas, which is less of a drag on the resources of the community, and creating healthier neighborhoods. It helps everybody across the board.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. And I mean, we've worked really, really, really hard here over the last 4 years to create, it sounds like a glib saying, but it's true, a whole of government approach. And
Yeah.
we've had great success driving down violent crime and particularly youth gun violence. And it's because, our cabinet meetings now are lively discussions between and among departments about how we can solve our common problems. And we are all in this ship together, right? I mean, a lot of times I think I always come back to the serenity prayer because I think it is a recipe for sanity, because you want to focus on what you can control and let God worry about the rest. And the local level is where you can put your back into it and control things and make a difference, right? I mean, of all the whatever you think about what's going on nationally at this point, a lot of it is, in my view, despicable. You can't do anything about it until the next midterms. If you want to go out and carry a sign around, you can do it. But I mean, in terms of the practical reality is, in a representative democracy, elections have consequences. And in the meantime, again, if you really want an efficient way to use your energy, whether that's, anger or excitement, get plugged in at the local level and get to work.
Well, and it's interesting to me because grassroots engagement has always been where I live. It's where I get my energy.
Yeah.
I just love it. But so we were hit with a direct hit from Hurricane Helene. So I feel like, I'd seen, to me, the Holy Spirit working here at the grassroots level for decades, but that really brought it to the fore. And I think Augusta is full, as I know Chattanooga is. I mean, you've got rabble rousers, but you've got a ton of really good citizens.
Yep.
But I don't ever want to ascribe blame to one area of the city or the other. But what this did do for us, I mean, I'm sure you are boots on the ground in all areas of the city, but not everybody is going into the lowest income neighborhoods.
Oh.
But basically having the storm brought everybody out of their comfort zones to where you had neighbors helping neighbors that had never met. And it was basically like the veil has been pulled back.
Yep.
There are certain neighborhoods where it's like, well, I didn't know there were so many big houses there, but there are other ones where it's like, I did not know people were living in those conditions in our community. So it's really pulled our community closer together, which, tragedies and disasters often do that, but it brought out the humanity in our city. I think local governments are the most important governments in our nation.
I totally agree. I mean, and again, as a former New Yorker, I mean, the probably the greatest example of that is, of course, the transformation that New York City underwent after 9/11, as tragic as it was. I lived there before 9/11. I've certainly been back many times since, and it fundamentally changed the culture in New York for the better. So there was that silver lining to an otherwise very, very dark cloud. But I think you're exactly right. Like, I mean, when I went and tried to knock on as many doors as I could during my campaign, and every time I do it, I mean, I go to all neighborhoods.
Yep.
And I mean, it is an eye-opening exercise, and so few of our residents, they don't even realize that they are in these very prescribed routines every day in their neighborhoods. Again, let's face it. I mean, we are both come from privileged backgrounds, and if you're going to and from the work to your gated community to the country club, making a circuit, you're not seeing these things. And if you get out and knock on doors, I mean, for me, it accomplishes two things. One, I'm seeing, what's actually happening in every corner of the city. Two, it will restore your faith in humanity, because we live in this world of social media now, where the loudest voices seem to control the narrative. But if you go knock on a bunch of doors, invariably you find that most people are reasonable, kind, decent, intelligent people. And we're seeing an oversampling of the loudest voices.
Well, I just came from a committee meeting of our local government, because I'm helping out with the long-term recovery committee here. They're actually about to bring me on full time. But another gentleman that I've brought on to the team, because I don't even like the word committee. Yeah. Committees are cul-de-sacs where good ideas go to die. I like assembling teams. But so this young man, he has a flooring company and a real estate development company. I think Dan Holloway. He's probably 53 or so. But after the storm hit, he sent out a text to 26 local business owners to see what they could do about helping with the recovery of the storm. Yep. He said he had 30 guys show up. And he's like, these are competitors. They would slit each other's throat in a real estate deal, but they are still working to rebuild houses 10 months in. And I'm like, that's the thing that you see. But it's like, he said, what we need to do, and I love self-starters. He said, it's basically when, your aunt dies, you go by and you see your uncle and there's all this hullabaloo, but then it stops. And he's like, we just don't have the opportunity. I mean, we cannot do that here. We need to keep beating the drum, but it's citizens like that inspire me. And I'm like, I agree with you. I'm like, stop looking at Washington. 99.9% of the people that live in this country will never have an impact, but the world begins outside your front door.
I totally agree. I mean, I read George Orwell's 1984 when I was in high school, and I reread it in college, and I reread it one more time because, man, it was such a visionary book in a dystopian sense because that two-party system, again, is a recipe. It's just a bad cartoon, and it keeps everybody so distracted and keeps they're so engaged because their hindbrains are lit up, and it's a useful cartoon. And I mean, let's face it, I'm a free market guy. I'm a business guy.
Yeah.
But the fact is we live in a world where we live in a market-driven media economy. And the fact of the matter is that stuff sells advertising. And so, we have a structural problem, I think, because that's, I've come to understand, I think, as we talked about that I'm wary of talking about the media and the aggregate, but they do have a bit of a perverse incentive to continue with it because, again, they're not there with the exception of public media, which again is certainly under assault, but paid media is there to return investment for shareholders. Right. They're there to sell advertising. And that's a thing we have to, I think, get out front and grapple with more.
And I think you and I had talked about, I got off of social media last December, but Steve Bannon takes an approach, flood the zone, right? Yeah. Which is basically overwhelm people with information. So they're manipulating social media. They're manipulating the mainstream media just to flood the zone and keep people off balance. But I've tried to look away from Washington, but some of the stuff, and I just want to get your take on this. I spoke to Mayor Beach Pace in Oregon, who was on the call we had with the Ford Party recently, about just some of the issues that she's facing. And she basically said that the Democrats have gone so far to the left, particularly in Oregon. She's like, she's been a lifelong Democrat, but people in meetings will call her a dino, which I'd never heard of a Democrat in name only. I'd only heard Republicans in name only. But it looks to me like the president, this administration, is deploying the National Guard just to create fear and intimidation, because I'm like, what, 800 National Guardsmen in the nation's capital, what's that really going to solve? But it's almost like it's a war on cities.
Well, look, this president understands, and Bannon certainly understands how, he understands TV and media and the broad strokes of sort of the kabuki theater of politics, which is something that, is not new. It is counter to a lot of the best traditions of, of the Enlightenment that our founding fathers, based this country on. But in its own way, it's brilliant, right? Because there's an old saying in politics: if you're explaining, you're losing. Yep. Well, it's impossible to explain anything without getting into a little bit of critical thinking. But I mean, again, that's why they're such fans of live wrestling, I think, because it's all just this very broad, visceral theater that feeds the worst instincts of their base. Sometimes their best instincts, but more often than not, their worst. But it's brilliant in that it doesn't require understanding or explanation. It's just kabuki theater.
No, it reminds me so much, and I'm glad you made the professional wrestling comment or analogy, because I'm like, that is really what it's like. It's like the Roman Colosseum.
Yeah.
It's just like it's throwing raw meat to people just to get them fired up. But you talked back about returning sanity, and we talked about a book that I sent you the title of that talks about forming islands of sanity. But basically, religiously, this book or another book I'd read said that's what Jesus and the disciples did. They formed an island of sanity in the middle of an empire,
right?
And that's what. I mean, this looks like trying to not build a kingdom. It looks like trying to build an empire right here. But I'm like, but if we can develop cities like Chattanooga and like Augusta into islands of sanity,
Yes.
I mean, and share lessons learned on how you do that, that's the way we're going to change the nation.
Totally agree. And, again, unfortunately, it was after your time as mayor that Mike Bloomberg started his investment with Harvard into this mayoral leadership institute that they do. But it's such a fantastic program. And there's really no agenda other than just kind of a best practice sharing platform for mayors across this country and really across the world. There's a lot of global mayors that come in and do this program. And, I was awestruck when I did it that, I had more in common with the mayor of, Johannesburg than I did with my state legislator. Right. I mean, all cities are fundamentally the same in the big ways and in almost every way. Right. And so, it's not a crazy thesis that we should all be focusing on this concept of just building better cities and strengthening our communities in place. Because if you think about it, like we have to eat our own cooking. We live in these cities and they're real things. They're tangible things you can see, touch, and feel. Whereas the state and the national level are really abstractions if you think about it.
Oh, yeah. And you're generally not going to run into your congressman or your senator at the grocery store or at the gas station. Or I would go to the Y every morning and still do. And I'm like, okay, if you go sit in sauna with a bunch of dudes that are sweaty, politics always comes up.
Yep.
But they're going to shoot you straight because you're not sitting on the dais above them.
That's it.
So that's the way to engage with the regular people in your community. You can keep your finger on the pulse the way that governors and the president and senators simply can.
Well, again, the thing that really, as somebody who has been, I mean, listen, I wrote an op-ed in my high school newspaper about the need for a third party and about the toxicity of our two-party system. That was 82, 81, I don't know. Look, one of the core conservative principles, I think it was Edmund Burke, that said government closest to the people is that one that governs the best, right?
Yep.
And again, I am right down the middle politically. I'm like a lot of people I could talk to more and more. I tend to be fiscally conservative and socially liberal, and
me too.
Right. It's not an uncommon thing these days. But we are all wandering in the wilderness looking for, looking for a home. And again, I'm very encouraged by a lot of these early conversations with the Forward Party, and I'm hoping it goes somewhere.
Well, it's funny because I was telling Mayor Pace that I literally have not been affiliated with either party. I mean, I used to consider myself a Republican when I was in high school because my dad was a Republican. My mom was a liberal Democrat, but we have all stripes in my family and we get along great.
Yep.
But Forward seems to be, and it's interesting. So it's a values-based party. We're not widely known at this point.
No.
But I've shared with people that we endorsed during the midterms last year. There were, where we had ballot access, there were Forwardists on the ballot, but we endorsed Democrats and Republicans too. But it was basically saying you have to sign an agreement saying that you will maintain your character and integrity, you will treat everybody in the process with dignity and respect, and you will respect the rule of law. And so I tell people that, and they're like, well, what's the big deal about that? I'm like, because it's introducing at least a level of accountability, getting a signature on it saying, I agree to do this, when that is not the norm on either side of the aisle.
No, and it is shocking that would be a tent, but it's a very big tent, but it's a tent. And and it's not much to ask of people, but it is. And again, 20 years ago, you would have said, "What's the deal?" Right? But now it's like that's saying something. And not to throw you a curveball, we haven't talked about this, but I've been struck here recently about all these debates about gerrymandering, and they're very real concerns. But they're premised on it. Just goes to show you how thoroughgoing this kind of myth is that we have to have a two-party system, because the whole conundrum with gerrymandering assumes that it can only be red or blue.
Yeah.
And I mean, it could be that the answer to gerrymandering is a third party, right? Because suddenly that just shatters the models. And I don't know how that plays out. There are a lot smarter people than me that look at this stuff all the time, Nate Silver and others. But it does strike me as potentially a path forward to interrupt that very toxic phenomenon.
Well, and it's interesting. So in 2020, I guess, or 2016, I had a young lady working for me. And so, basically, when Trump first got elected, I said, I said, movements built around anger rarely end well.
Right.
And so then, we had the riots happen at the Capitol, and I called a young lady who no longer worked for me. I'm like, Virginia, remember what I told you, 4 years ago? But that's what I like about Forward is it's not built around anger. And
Right.
I think most people don't want to be made to feel just angry and bitter and hateful towards their neighbors. So there's got to be a place, and once again, an alternative where people can go and actually have healthy debate
Right.
and not worry about getting shouted down or getting threatened with violence.
That's absolutely right. I mean, again, really, at the end of the day, you come back to the Constitution. It's right there in front of you. It's ultimately about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And it's odd that we would even be having this discussion as though it were extraordinary, but that's where we are today.
Well, that's the thing to me. And I grew up a rock and roll fan and a punk rock fan.
Me too.
And so I think it's rebelling against authority. But Lindsey Drake sent me a podcast. I think who's the CEO of the Forward Party, where they were saying that, being a Republican and being MAGA now is so punk rock. And I'm like, punk rock is rebelling against the establishment. Who is the establishment in this case? I'm like, that's more like cool, like fraternity, I'm better than the other guys and everything. And you got to change your character to join the clique. I'm like, that is not Republicans nor Democrats are not punk rock right now. But I'm like, the toxic division, that's the establishment. And I will rebel all day long against that.
Right. Yeah. Well, you and me both. It's funny. I did not know that about your background, but I was a drummer, played in a lot of bands, and probably my coolest bio bullet point is that I've got to play CBGBs at one time in New York.
Did you really?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, see, so I would say, unless you may, cut me on this, I used to tell people, I think I was the only mayor in America to have ever moshed at a Nirvana show.
I did not do that.
Okay. Well, if you were at CBGB's, you might have been doing a little slam dancing too.
I was behind the drum set, man. I was not not dancing, right? I mean, we played there. We played. There was a band called, or rather, a bar called Maxwell's over in Hoboken that was pretty famous at the time. And the bar I really liked playing was called Downtown Beirut, of all things. But no, I was playing, and I really enjoyed doing it. Almost stayed there and did that, and did not want to live the life of an itinerant rock and roll drummer. So came home to run car dealerships.
No, well, it's funny. So I grew up in the bedroom community here around Augusta, Columbia County, but which is largely Republican now and everything. But I went to my 40th high school reunion 2 weeks ago. And so they built a town center. It's really, everything is nice and all. But I'm like, I like to be in the middle of the place where there's diversity and there's problems to solve. And it's not, being homogenous is really, to me, God love anybody who wants to be homogenous, but it's very boring to me.
Yeah, me too. No, I live in about a mile from City Hall, right behind the university, in a very diverse neighborhood. And yeah, being in New York for college really changed my life for the better. It showed me the true value of diversity, not to check a bunch of boxes, but because it really does make for a healthier, more interesting, more vibrant, and a more intelligent city, and so, that has never left me. And I kind of brought that with me back to Chattanooga when I came here. And, we've made a lot of progress since then. Chattanooga is a really interesting and vibrant place.
Well, and that's the thing to me, is I've often said to people, I don't believe you can grow as a person if you're only hanging around people that look like you, act like you, and think like you. Right. And I believe that diversity is a good thing, because it encourages new ideas and everything. But when I was years ago somebody asked me, well, if Augusta was a food, what would it be?
That's
And
interesting.
I said it would be a gumbo, because everybody knows you can't have gumbo that tastes decent with one ingredient. I mean, it's all the ingredients that go into it that make it so good, and just appreciating people's differences and not trying to demonize people. I will go back to what is cool and what's uncool. Being angry and demonizing people and calling them the other, in my book, there's absolutely nothing cool about that.
No, I mean, look, I went to spoke at the opening of a Hindu temple in Chattanooga a couple years ago, and I try to stay on script. My comms people know that's hard for me sometimes, and it scares the hell out of them. But I got up on stage, and it just kind of hit me all of a sudden. I'm like, this stuff started to come out of my mouth, and I thought, this maybe not a good idea. I mean, there was probably 3,000 people in there, and I said, listen, honored to be here, obviously, but I was like, this country was founded by white Christian men. And, again, we didn't get it all right. Obviously, at the time of the country's founding, we had slavery, which we eventually corrected. Women couldn't vote, which we eventually corrected. But one thing that was true from the beginning is that if they'd have wanted to make it a white Christian country from the standpoint of religion and ethnicity, they would have said so.
Yeah.
They did not say that. They very explicitly did not say so.
Yeah.
Although they could have said so, which tells me they knew exactly what they were doing, when they were guaranteeing religious freedom and implicit in that very often, ethnic diversity. So, and the crowd eventually appreciated that, but I think I had them on pins and needles there for a second, but look, I think we got a lot of people in this country, unfortunately, who slept through civics class or who just don't understand, American history. We are a nation of immigrants. Unless you're American, we all came here from somewhere else. This idea that somehow this is a white Christian country is it's not just, repugnant. It's wrong. It's literally, factually, historically not true. And that's, I think, the part, probably the part of Trumpism that disturbs me the most is the demonization of, the sort of anti-intellectual stuff, because I read George Will regularly, and boy, howdy, has he come a long way. He is, I never thought I'd see the day when George Will was literally like just completely off the reservation.
Well, I'll tell you, I made it a point throughout my time in office, because it had been portrayed in Augusta that there's a black and white divide, and it's black and white and all that. I'm like, look, we've got a huge Latino community, and we've got a huge Asian community, Indian community. So I did outreach to all sectors of the community. And even with regards to updating the community on our hurricane recovery efforts, I've got a buddy, Pastor Angel Baestre. So he's a pastor of a Latino church on the south side of town. He has his own radio station. He does a 3-hour-a-day radio call-in show, and he does it all in Spanish. So I was able, and the chairman of the committee, we were able to go for, hour and speak directly to the Latino portion of the community in their own language. And I love, but I used to go to the Indian festival. And so my friend that would invite me there, I was the first mayor to go in an official capacity to the Latino festival. But my friend at the Indian festival would always introduce me and say, he was born in Montreal, Canada. He's an immigrant just like us. And I'm like, well, my parents were American, but fortunately, somehow nobody checked my birth certificate in 9 years in office. Imagine that.
Well, again, I've got my family tree is pretty deeply American for a long, long time ago, but they all came from somewhere. Whether it was one generation ago or 10 generations ago. I don't think we need to point out the hypocrisy of suddenly deciding the door's closed behind you, right? It's wrong and it's not true. And I think, unfortunately, what we're seeing now, hopefully it will at least lead to sensible immigration reform eventually. But it's just, it's pretty terrible.
Well, but I still, I never want to end without giving people hope. But that is, I have told so many people since we first came in contact about you. And I'm like,
oh, well,
he did it. I'm like, we have case studies that you can do this at the local level, the way I did it at Augusta, the way that Tim did it in Chattanooga. Case studies that show that if you govern to the majority and in a common sense manner and in a caring and compassionate manner, okay, basically political advisors will shoot for 51, 52%.
Yep.
I'm like, but you can use campaigns like you did and I did here to bring people together on common ground. And you would think, I thought after we did it here, but I would think that after people say, okay, you can do it this way and not piss people off.
Yeah.
And win with 86% of the vote, why would you not want to do it that way?
I totally agree. Listen, I mean, I never ran for student council before I ran for mayor, and I just treated it like another startup. I'd done a bunch of startups. I'm kind of a marketing guy at heart, and I thought, well, how hard can this be? You know, I mean, I'm the product of the platform. Really, was the product, and for me, it was I think it was Stephen King who said the only reason to write a book is because you can't not, because it's like a baby you have to give birth to, and for me, that was my campaign. But I was obviously gratified, and then by the result and by the second result. One of my favorite quotes is that the future is already here. It's just not widely distributed. And I'd like to think that that's what's going on with you and me. Again, I do hope, and I talk to as many people as will listen to me about my story. And now, since I've met you, your story, because I think that's right. I mean, if we can inspire the next generation of people to step up and do this, candidly, one of the things that I'm most disturbed by is, I mean, look, I'm not a grotesquely wealthy person. I've got enough that I'll be fine when I retire. But I, you and I both know people who've made a hell of a lot of money, and more money than they can ever spend, or that their children can ever spend in their lifetimes. What the hell are they going to do? Play golf for the rest of their lives? I mean, seriously, people need to step up. I mean, I don't think you have to be a profoundly religious person to realize that service to your community is the highest calling. I mean, what is the meaning of life anyway? I mean, we don't need everybody to do it, but if we can just get a few people to go, you know what? Yeah. I should do that. I've got something to add. Candidly, one of the things I can be thankful to Donald Trump for was when I saw him run, I thought, well, shit, if that guy can do it, I hadn't led a perfect life, but I thought, if that guy can do it, and he has the chutzpah to do it and actually be successful, then by God, I can do it. And so I think we need more people to realize, you get to, we're about the same age. You probably had a couple of health scares. Get over yourself and go do it and serve your community. And we just need more people to do that. I mean, our democracy is predicated on people doing that.
I know you've got a meeting to get to, a budget meeting, and I was still going to ask you a couple more questions.
Yeah, I got a little time. I've got time.
No, I mean, I'm just psyched because I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship, and we got to start a movement. And the only way you're going to start a movement is at the local level. Yep. And I think people think it's got to be, to change things, you've got to have a stadium full of people. Everything starts small.
Yep.
It starts in Augusta, it starts in Chattanooga, and then we join together, and then we can start teaching kids that you don't have to do it that old way that, that's faulty logic. If you want to compromise your character to get ahead, I'm a character guy. I'm not compromising my character in business or in politics to get ahead. But to have role model, have people that say, here's a different way. Here's a way that you can do it that actually builds a stronger community rather than tearing your community apart.
Hallelujah. I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I do think we're at a moment, I was just actually reading a media study yesterday about the fact that it's all kind of happened in slow motion, but the old, the Wicked Witch is dead, right? Like the traditional media it's over, right? I mean, the number one media outlet now is YouTube. And so I think the bad news is we've seen this kind of fracturing, which has been very scary and confusing to a lot of people, but it's also the good news because I can see the seeds of a brighter future here where people can realize that, like you say, they can assemble the tools and just, and again, as you said, and we agree on this completely, there are 11 values in my One Chattanooga plan that come before the 7 goals, because I think values are much more important than goals. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. And if you can get aligned on values and people can say, and as the Ford party has, like, we're going to align around this, and the goals are fungible. We'll figure those out.
Yeah.
But character matters more than anything. I do think there's a really, really bright chance in the next decade or so that people can just drive the truck right up the middle.
Well, and if the next generation can't see it, they can't be it.
Yep.
So they need to know that there are people out there, and I bet we're not the only two case studies.
No way. No, I mean, but we both know more people. It's just that we're not really, organized yet.
Yeah. Well, we will be. Well, as we get down to the end here, I always like to ask my guests 2 questions, and man, we could talk for hours, and I bet we will end up talking for many, many hours, and probably over cocktails at some point in time.
So.
But so where can people find you?
Well, Chattanooga.gov is where you can find obviously all the city assets, but at Mayor Tim Kelly is my social media. We've got a YouTube channel at the city of Chattanooga where we lean on pretty heavily. Again, all the various social media platforms. Mayor.chattanooga.gov is our newsletter we send out. So I'm eminently Googleable.
And we realized that we've got a mutual friend up there, Barry White.
He was just in my office this morning, as a matter of fact, and he sent his regards. He had the nicest thing to say about you. He runs our tourism agency here and does a heck of a job for us.
I got to work with him for 9 years in office. Great guy. My last question is, on a daily basis, what puts a smile on your face and brings joy to your heart?
Oh, won't surprise you to learn music. I mean, I'm a very kind of highly sensing person, and the right music can bring me to tears at any time, right? And so, I'm always amazed and gratified by the variety in my Spotify feed, and I love discovering new music and listening to old music that moves me.
So what's your favorite new music?
Oh man, I don't know that I have any. I mean, my what do you call the Spotify recap thing they do? It would blow your mind. I mean, honestly, it goes from reggae to old country to opera. It's just all over the place. I mean, I'm listening to I love really old reggae like Toots and the Maytals. I love that. I love Colter Wall, is a newer country artist who sounds very, very old. He's not. He's a younger guy. And I just discovered some songs that I really like by a group out of Austin called the Texas Gentlemen. So, I mean, it's all over the place.
No, you and me both. Well, I will tell you, Tim, thank you for being an amazing guest. And I look forward to having you back on. Good luck in your budget meeting. I've been through many of those. I don't know that I miss those anymore, but thank you for doing it for the right reasons. And thank you for being a role model as to what a public servant looks like.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you for paving the way. I'm happy to come back on and look forward to, getting that cocktail with you at some point soon.
That sounds great. Well, that's all the time we've got. Dropping the mic and we are out.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to or watching the Changemaker podcast today. Greatly appreciate it. If you're listening and you want to see the video, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel at Deke Copenhaver. That's a pretty easy to remember, I would think. But really, we also want to remind you to like, subscribe, rate across all platforms, download. And if you're looking for a coach, a speaker, or anything, you know where to find me. Just email me at me@dekecopenhaver.com. And thanks so much for listening.